So I have been promising for about 9.5 months that I would share uh, Cody's story and what uh, what happened to him and why we lost him. Um, and I thought the best way to do that would be to start a YouTube channel because you can't fit all of a person's life into just one short little uh, segment. Um, Also, I wanted to share some happy adventures that that Lincoln and Hammy and I have. First of all, we have moved, and we are very happy where we're at. This we bought a purple couch because purple is, of course, my favorite color. Also, I want to apologize in advance for my red eyes. I do have a lot of allergies, and my nose has been running a lot, and I figured I would probably cry anyway. Um, so, to get into Cody's story, um, Cody was born on March 10th, 1978, in Houston, Texas. He moved to Leary, where he attended elementary school. He lived right next to the school with his grandparents for a time, and everyone loved his grandparents. Also, let me add the disclaimer that this is what Cody has told me. If I'm wrong about anything, I hope that his family will correct me and also understand that this is what I was told. Cody was very, very, very smart, very gifted at absolutely everything he did. We enjoyed playing trivia together. He was good at painting. He was good at construction work. He was brilliant with anything academic, and he was amazing with animals. When he started school, on his first day of school, he met his best friend, who is also named Cody. And I love this particular story because they were best friends their whole life, or Cody's whole life. And they were even college roommates. And I think that is just really special to have a friend like that. And I'm grateful that he had that. Cody grew up around a lot of alcohol. His dad was often not at home, and when he was 8, his grandparents moved to Houston. Cody was, to my knowledge, left home alone. At times, he had an older brother who was 6 years older, and Clint was a good brother, and they were very close. His friend Cody's mom, Miss Anita, took Cody in and bought him clothes, and would just have Cody over for weeks during the summer or weekends. It just treated Cody like another kid, and I am so thankful for her. Calling her to tell her that Cody had passed away was incredibly difficult, because he considered her a mother as well. And when I met her, I didn't know who she was, but I knew she was someone special because the way Cody was speaking to her, and the way she spoke to him, it was so similar. Their patterns of speech and different things like that. I just knew that there was a bond, even though I didn't know who she was for a few minutes until he had time to introduce me, as I had just walked into their conversation. They, I can't express enough thanks to the other Cody's family for being there for him. When Cody was Cody was also very good at football. He enjoyed it. He played Pee Wee. He played junior high. He moved to Hooks junior high in 7th grade so that he could play football, and he also played in high school. He just loved the sport. Cody was about 5'10", and he was slightly muscular, but he was slender, and he could eat anything, which drove me crazy. He was just, I wish there were words to describe him. He also was involved with the FFA. He learned to, he became involved with meat judging, which I'm pretty much just a vegetarian, so our relationship was ironic, because his team went to the Houston International show in college, and they won first place, which is a huge accomplishment. He can tell you about marbling, which cuts came from where, all sorts of things about beef and pork and I don't all kinds of meat that I know nothing about. He was very good and went to college on a scholarship for that. He was just, I couldn't imagine a better person, a more talented person. But he also had a lot of personal demons and personal battles that he fought, which we all do. He battled alcoholism. He told me the first time he had a drink, he was about 5 years old, and his dad would have him refill his drinks, and he drank gin. I did not grow up around alcohol. I will have another story about that. But I did not grow up with that, and so I just didn't understand. As he progressed into high school, he would drink after football games. Clint, his brother, was 6 years older than he was, so he could easily have the alcohol for everyone when he was 15 years old and Clint was 21, which is typical for this part of the country. Kids drink after football games, that kind of thing. I did not. My father was a police officer, and my mother worked for CPS, and I was terrified. But again, that's another story. Cody battled for so long. He drank a lot at college. He finished his associate's degree. He told me that he transferred to A&M in College Station, which I believe to be true, but I don't know that, to my knowledge, he did not graduate. He told me he did, but I don't know. I would have loved him either way. Please excuse the snoring. It's Lincoln. He, which that's another story as well. When Cody had a lot of issues drinking, especially as he began working for grocery stores and managing them. His first job was working at the grocery store in Hooks. I wish that I could recall the name. Unfortunately, I cannot. He went about a week before his 16th birthday and applied for a job and was told to come back when he turned 16, and he did. He loved working. He worked hard. All of his employers really, really appreciated his hard work and dedication. And I do know this to be true because I had two separate ones tell me. Cody worked for Super One in Brookshires, in Shreveport, Tyler, and Dallas. In Dallas, he was a manager, and he dated one of the cashiers, and he did end up marrying her, but it was not allowed to have, it was against the rules to have a relationship. So he left that job and began working for Sprouts Farmers Markets, which I got to visit one in Austin, and it was one that he opened from the ground up, and I was just so proud. And I'm grateful for Sprouts because he met two more of his really good friends that were like his family. And he was transferred to the Austin area where, from what I understand, he agreed to transfer to Austin if his friends could go as well. And they did. They would have barbecues with alcohol. It was just very prevalent in Cody's life. I believe that he was taken to the hospital maybe once in Dallas and once in Austin, very near death. When he returned to Texarkana, I met him in December of 2015. We had so much fun. Our first date was at Painting with a Twist, and I was just shocked because most guys wouldn't do that. And we just had a really, really fun time. We would go to trivia. We always tried to have a date night. I was unaware that he had a problem with alcohol. He seemed to be able to drink a couple of drinks and be fine, or drink nothing at all. I'm not necessarily the most observant person in the world, so it's hard for me to judge whether someone is sober or drunk or whatever degree in between at any kind of restaurant or wherever I may see someone. So I did not think anything of it. probably around February or March of 2016, I went to Cody's house after he got off work about 4. I got off at work at 5:30, and some days I would have a meeting or something afterwards, and I'd gone to his house, and I noticed something wasn't right. He told me that he had had diabetes in the past, but he was good, which this sounded reasonable because my dad was diabetic, but his was controlled with diet, and so it made complete sense to me. So I thought maybe he was just having some kind of sugar reaction. I didn't know. I ended up calling 911. They tried to test his blood sugar. He was argumentative. He was coherent enough to barricade himself in the bathroom, and because he was so coherent, nobody could take him to the hospital. I just watched him as close as I could, and he was okay. And he went to work the next day, and things went on as usual. And no more trouble or anything. We went to a friend's house and got together with a group of friends a week or so later. And sometimes I would have a drink or two and not drive, and Cody had said that he would stay sober and drive that night, and I just for some reason wasn't in the mood. So I told him to have fun and drink. I had no idea what his battles were. Had I known, it might have been a different story, but I didn't. There were 6 or 8 of us there. We had a really good time. I drove him home. He fell asleep in the car. I thought, he just had a good time. He'll go to sleep. He'll be fine, which was very true. A few weeks later, I left my phone with him by accident one evening, and I thought, I'll just go get my phone and everything will be fine. And so I stopped that morning. I noticed I stopped, and I couldn't wake him up. And Cody wasn't a sound sleeper, but thought, maybe he just took something to help him sleep. Maybe, this is normal. I'm running late. We just leave. I got off at 1:30 on Fridays, so when I came back, he was still unresponsive. And that's when I got scared. I called 911. We went to the hospital. They asked me all kinds of questions. I tried to get in touch with his family. I was able to reach a cousin who didn't know much of his medical history. Cody never went to the hospital. It was impossible to get him to go to the doctor for anything. So I didn't know. With my parents or my sister or anyone like that, even my dogs, I can spit out a health history. But with Cody, I couldn't. And they were so awesome at the hospital that day. Excuse me. They were so awesome. I was very impressed with them. This story, at this point, it may get a little a little graphic. They drew blood. Um, they wanted to test his urine, and of course they gave him a choice of how, either he could provide a sample or they could take a sample. He was very wobbly, but he wanted to provide a sample, so I took him to the bathroom and we got a sample. And they were, the hospital was just very attentive with getting him an IV, doing every test, EKGs, whatever they could. After a couple of hours, he had been in a trauma room. The doctor came in and he said, "We know what's wrong." I think he could tell that I was very alarmed. He said his blood alcohol level is, it was somewhere close to 0.5, which is, I believe, different in the way the hospitals test than the way he would be blowing a breathalyzer. It could be the same. I don't know. Those details don't really matter to me as much as knowing what he had and how terrified I was. They rehydrated him, and he was discharged. A few weeks later, he wanted me to meet him at his house. I pulled up right behind him, and I don't know if he drank in his truck. I don't know how he got home. But he was basically passed out in his truck. He was unconscious. And he's okay. He's dreaming. I called 911. The ambulance, volunteer firefighters showed up, and also deputies. And one of the deputies knew my dad, which is probably a good thing because Cody was behind the wheel of a vehicle. I found alcohol, dumped it out. While I was talking to the deputies, he got in my car and proceeded to lock the door. The firefighters basically said that there was nothing they could do, and I just hit the button and unlocked it. We got him in the house. He slept it off. A couple weeks after that, he had another episode, and it was totally a God thing that when I had a head injury a few years ago, my doctor suggested going to Brentwood in Shreveport because no neurologist wanted to see me after a car accident and post-concussion syndrome. I'm fine now. So the first thing I knew to do was call Brentwood. I didn't think they would take him without a doctor referral. I didn't think they would. It was just totally God. They said, "We have a bed right now. If you can get him down here to Shreveport, we'll assess him and admit him." And they did. He voluntarily checked himself in. But basically all they did was detox him and send him on his way, which is what I understand they're designed for, actually. I think that he could have used some rehab. But again, he came back I knew right after meeting him that he had anxiety because I suffer from anxiety, and I took him to the doctor to get him on medication to help that. However, he didn't like the way medication made him feel. I don't understand how you can not like the way medication makes you feel when it makes you calm, but you're perfectly okay with the way alcohol makes you feel. But that's my personal opinion. He was released from the hospital on my birthday, and when we came back, he found out that his brother was admitted to the hospital in Dallas and was having some major liver complications. We were under the assumption at first that he would be okay. However, he was readmitted a couple of times, and the last time they decided he was not a candidate for a liver transplant and put him on hospice, where he unfortunately passed away the next day in the hospital. This was very difficult for Cody, very. I didn't think to offer him a therapist, visiting a therapist at the time. I didn't really know what to do. I had lost my dad, but I couldn't imagine losing a sibling, especially my only blood sibling. He does have some stepbrothers and a stepsister. He was at his mom's, and the only thing I knew to do was take him for ice cream. A couple weeks after that, July 7th, he had been in a lot of emotional pain. He had been prescribed Klonopin in the past, so he'd had a Klonopin to deal with his anxiety. He drank, and he also, I believe, took an Ambien one evening. The next morning, about 9 or 10 a.m., he was stopped. And he had a blood alcohol level of 0.23. He was arrested. I had no clue how to get him out. I just had to tell. The people at the jail were very nice and helpful when I just told them the situation. Cody was on probation for 2 years, and he was sober the entire time. I know this because they do have some sort of test they can do, and they can do it at any time. He was very good, did everything according to what he was supposed to do on probation. Always was given the new officers, was never a problem, so they only occasionally tested him, but it was never ever a problem. He was put on probation in September of 2016. In June of 2017, his dad and stepmom came to dinner with us for my birthday, and his dad mentioned he wasn't feeling well, and he'd been scheduled for some tests. And he later found out that he had esophageal cancer. He was not going to fight it, but he chose to give treatment a chance. And I'm thankful he did, because I'm very, very thankful to have known his dad. And I'm thankful Cody got to mend some relationships. In November of 2017, Cody received a text message that his grandmother had passed away. A group text message. I could not imagine, even knowing a grandparent was sick, or knowing they were 94 years old, 93, 94, even knowing that, it still doesn't make it any easier. And his grandmother was like another mother to him. She taught him to cook. They enjoyed doing crosswords together. I got to meet her and spend time with her, and she was such a neat lady. She told me so many stories about Cody, about how smart he was, she told me one story when he was 3 or 4. He told her, "Grandma, my mouth's as dry as a desert." And she just thought it was the cutest thing. She loved her Cody. And their relationship was very special, and I'm grateful I got to know her as well. And her funeral, it was amazing to see how many people were there. We pulled up to visitation, and if I have as many people at my visitation when I'm 94 years old, I would be honored. I know you're gone and you don't know, but there must have been 200 people there. She was that wonderful of a person. So that was very, very hard for Cody as well. The next February, Cody's dad's birthday was February 28th, and he spoke to him on his birthday, and everything was going well. He was going downhill from his cancer, but it was still, Cody wished him happy birthday, and they talked. March 10th was Cody's birthday, and his dad called but didn't leave a message, so since my family was over with the cake and things, he said, "Yeah, I'll just call him back later." And he went to call him back the next day, and his dad, was not doing well. A couple weeks later, around the 1st of April, I think it was April 3rd, Cody got a phone call that his dad was being taken to inpatient hospice. Hospice is a wonderful, wonderful organization, and it is a gift that we have inpatient hospice in Texarkana. It's great. However, it's hard to see a loved one there. They were able to explain to Cody, or to anyone, what to see, what to expect. There were small books that answered questions they were able to give us. The nurses were phenomenal. And that Sunday, Cody and I were on our way to visit, and we had stopped at the store to get a couple of sodas and settle in for another day. And we went and saw his stepmom and her sister in the hall, and we knew for some reason, Cody had taken a left turn out of that convenience store, and instead of a right, and it just, I mean, we just missed it by a couple of minutes. His stepmom left immediately. I wanted to stay until the funeral home came, and Cody did. Cody stayed sober all summer, and then Thanksgiving rolled around, which was hard for him. And he was sad because the holidays were coming up, and he just kept saying, "I miss my family, I miss my family, I miss my family." I was teaching English online. I was working nights. I knew he was drinking, but I didn't quite know how much. I know that he had beer, and I would find the beer and I would pour it out. Anything I found, I would pour out. And I started to find more and more empties. More and more, it was very sad. On the evening of December 16th, I went to bed about 11 o'clock, and I thought, I have a small break. I'm going to catch up on some Netflix, and I couldn't find the remote. I told Cody, Cody, I can't find the remote. Where is it? Why can't I find it? And he was able to get up, find the remote, toss it at me, and get back in bed. A little while later, I got up and taught a class or two, and he, I guess about 2 a.m., I went and laid back down for a little bit. His breathing was a little abnormal, but not to where I thought anything's wrong. I thought maybe he just had a cold. It was December. He was just snoring funny, and I still kick myself for that. Even though I had no idea. I got back up, taught some more, went to get in bed about 7:30, 8-ish, and Cody was on his side with his hand like this. I just had a funny feeling, and I poked at him, and he didn't move. And I shoved him a little harder, and he didn't move. And I shoved even harder, and his arm didn't move, and Cody was a light sleeper. I couldn't feel any breath coming out of his mouth. I shoved him out of the bed, attempted to start CPR because I knew I needed a flat surface, but I don't know why I went for the diaphragm and not where you're supposed to start a chest compression. I know better. I don't know. But all I know is it was hard. His skin was mottled. Of course, my phone was dead. Thank goodness for Facebook calls. I called my mother. I called a friend whose husband is a police officer who lived right down the road. I called Cody's boss, who was the coroner at the time. All very early morning calls. My mom called me back and told me to call 911, and I told her that was pretty impossible to do. So she called 911, came straight over. Our police officer friend came over and sat with me. And our coroner friend was out of town, but he called one of my best friends, that he was friends with her husband. They were both firefighters. And that'll be in another in another video. I know this is getting long. However, the ambulance came. The EMTs were pretty rude. They took a look at Cody and said, "Yeah, he's gone," or something to that effect. Yes, I did file a complaint with the COO about that, because I don't want another family to have to hear that. I'm fine with it. I knew I was in shock, but just I don't want another family to hear that. It was my home. I'm a police officer's child, and my home was treated like a crime scene. I mean, they were very kind, very respectful. I wasn't questioned. I knew the detective very well, and I'd already given the story to our friend, and so I wasn't. They were just doing their jobs just in case. They just took some pictures. I gave him Cody's antidepressants. He'd been diagnosed at this point with having PTSD as well as anxiety because of what he had been through. However, it was legally it still had to be done, and I'm okay with that. I'm sorry, the camera is shaking. Lincoln and Hammy are a little concerned. But Cody's death, Cody had to be taken for an autopsy. And it was ruled that he died of, his cause of death is accidental ethanol poisoning. I know this video has gotten really long, but I wanted to get that much out because I know there's a lot of you that I haven't communicated with about this. There will be other videos that will, with lots of updates. I'm probably not going to edit this video just because it is emotional, and I want to have it. I want to just have it all. But I'm doing well. My boys are doing well. My niece, my family, we're all doing well. I do apologize that Hammy knocked over the light. But that's Hammy. And I will hopefully have another video up for you guys very soon. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, let me know.